We spend an enormous amount of energy acting. Every day, we force a smile at a rude comment, pretend to be endlessly patient, and meticulously curate our reactions just to keep the peace. It is utterly exhausting. That exhaustion comes from maintaining what is essentially a fabricated outermost layer of the personality. It has nothing to do with reality, neither your true nature nor even your actual flawed feelings. It is a completely false front. Look at this diagram of the human personality structure. That outermost shell, the brittle, artificial crust isolating everything inside, is the mask self. When our outward actions are entirely unsupported by our internal feelings, the soul is at war. This internal friction functions like a persistent drain on our vital energy, creating what the Pathwork guide calls a short circuit in the psyche. It is this specific energetic breakdown that eventually surfaces as physical signals, manifesting in ailments like chronic fatigue or allergies. Because the mask is an imitation of goodness, it lacks the clarity of true virtue. To a spiritual observer, the energy of this fake layer is not pure light. It is sickeningly sweet and artificial. It is the emotional equivalent of cheap, mass-produced kitsch. We construct this kitsch because we are terrified. We know exactly what would happen if we dropped the act. If we behaved according to our actual selfish impulses, we would be disliked, rejected, and ostracized by our community. But repressing those selfish desires does not erase them. By burying the darkness beneath a polite smile, we force those feelings deep into the subconscious. Down there in the dark, entirely out of our awareness, they ferment and mutate. Living a lie to appease society leaves the inner conflict completely unresolved. The darkness remains, but now it is undetectable, highly toxic, and silently wearing down the physical body from the inside. To find the root of that toxicity, we must shatter that brittle crust. Beneath the exterior lies the difficult reality of the human condition, the lower self. This heavy layer is the center of the ego, where our genuine selfishness, pride, and raw ignorance live. The reason we built the mask in the first place is that this lower self is incredibly lazy. It hates the idea of change. It wants its way without paying the price of self-correction, so it hides behind an easy deception instead of doing the agonizing work of personal growth. Our flaws are not passive quirks. They form an active, stubborn resistance. You cannot bypass this dense layer with polite behavior. You have to march straight into it. The immediate fear is that if we drop the social act, we will be forced to act out our worst, most destructive impulses. People think that without the mask, they will become monsters. That is a false choice. You can absolutely maintain the behavioral standards of a decent society, but you stop lying to yourself about your true motives. You do the right thing while fully acknowledging that part of you hates doing it. This requires radical self-honesty. You have to clearly observe the exact discrepancy between your outward generosity and your inward resentment, keeping both facts in your vision at once. You do not have to choose between being a hypocrite and a menace to society. You simply have to tolerate the acute discomfort of looking at your own darkness, staying fully aware of your unpurified feelings as you slowly do the work of changing them. If you push through the dense matter of the ego, you reach the center of the personality structure. This is the higher self. It is the divine spark, the finest subtle body with the quickest frequency of vibration. While the other layers are temporary and reactive, this core is the permanent reality you are trying to reach. Historical spiritual traditions have centered on this architecture for millennia. They demand the surrender of the ego, not as a form of punishment, but as the only way to free this divine nature from the layers of denser matter surrounding it. The excruciating pain of exploring your own selfishness and pride is suddenly justified. It is the only physical and spiritual pathway capable of tearing down the walls that keep this perfect inner spark imprisoned. To begin the cure, you have to stop trying to simply eliminate your physical illness or your anxiety. Those are just the surface consequences. Instead, you must hunt down the underlying motives in your lower self that caused them in the first place. Drop the sickly sweet act. Meet your difficult, flawed reality with courage and optimism. and make it a daily practice to ruthlessly observe your inner currents. As you track these deviations and demand absolute honesty from yourself, your motives begin to clear. The dense matter of the ego slowly dissolves, and the higher self naturally expands into the space left behind. True healing never comes from faking perfection to please the crowd. It requires the brave, uncompromising excavation of your own shadows, clearing the dirt away so the perfection already inside you can finally breathe.